That's how those things can be talked.
All right, everybody, it's 6 o'clock, and it looks like we've got everybody here. Another great attended meeting by the committee, our commissioner facilitators. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and start with the invocation and pledge. And here you are, resident invocation chaplain, so we appreciate it.
As most of you regulars know, I have been kind of the designated prayer ever since this group started, and it's been an honor and a privilege for me to do that. And so I'm going to do something a little different tonight because it is a day that we all remember, 9/11. Let's have just a moment of silent prayer, and then I've got a couple of comments. There were 2,996 people died on 9/11. And it's hard to pray for 2,996 families because I don't know them. But there were 4 people that died that had residences in Georgia. There was Claude Michael Gann, was 41 years old, from Roswell, Georgia. He died in the World Trade Center. So let's remember the Gann family right now. Major Steve Long, U.S. Army, 39 years old. State of residence was Georgia. He died at the Pentagon. Let's remember the Long family. Maynard S. Spence Jr. was 42 years old from Douglasville, Georgia. He died in the World Trade Center. Let's remember the Spence family. And then Harshad Sham Thateh, 30 years old from Norcross, Georgia. He died in the World Trade Center. Let's remember the Thateh family. Father, we thank you for your comfort, your healing, your blessings on this country. Now just bless our time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then, moving into the agenda, we have a new agenda item here. Most of you are aware there was a resolution passed here this week directly on the airport, and I talked with David Carmichael and then Dave Austin, and I thought it'd be good to have him come and address the committee about the background of that and that resolution that was passed, and we can take that under consideration as we finish up our work here. So Dave, I know you got your wife's birthdays today.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna.
Tomorrow we will be married 43 years if she doesn't stay mad at me from today. And this past July we've been dating 50 years, so it's pretty much all I've ever known. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for all the work you've done, and it hasn't gone ignored. After every one of your IBA and airport meeting, I'm touch base with somebody to find out, you know, what do we need to know, what do we need to do, what will be the next step. You know, when you look back and you figure where we've come from, and I came in the worst recession in history, and during those times we couldn't get 6 people in, and trying to figure out how we were going to survive. And now we can fill the room up, but back then there was nobody there to help me figure out what we could and couldn't do. So, you know, as time progressed, we did a lot of layoffs. We did what we had to do, and we have the economy coming back. And during this whole time, I've looked at this airport as a job opportunity and as a opportunity to take the Georgia Tech School of Aviation, one of the best in the nation, and capitalize on it. So we've talked with Cliff Cole at the Board of Education, we've talked to Chattahoochee Tech, we've talked to Georgia Highlands and Kennesaw, and said, you know, there's two focuses here. One is aviation and aerospace, and the other is healthcare. Two great assets that we have in this county. And so we moved the hospital along, we got it built, and I think it's a great thing. Today I was in a meeting at GFA, and it looks like we're going to be awfully close to having a good bit of financing ready for the 404 permit that should come before the first of the year. A lot goes into this. It's not like I get to think about the airport all day long, every day, but and some people do. They just have the chance to only focus on that. I don't have that luxury. But I took what all y'all have been meeting and saying and doing, and I tried to put it in a intergovernmental agreement that would preserve the airport as a base for jobs, and also a director to be able to run it. That was will be transferred over to the airport authority. So looking at what you've been telling us all along, we've tried to structure this in that fashion so that we're able to run the airport with professional airport people. I'm not a professional airport person. I probably know a whole lot more about that than I ever thought I would ever know. But all the work y'all have done and all the recommendations you've had, we try to get into this agreement. The other thing that will come forward from y'all will be how you want to structure, who you want to serve on those committees. And I'm fine if I'm not on either one. I really don't care. But I do care about putting great professional people on both so that we can move this county forward and have jobs. I feel like with grandchildren 7 and 10, I'd like to see them be able to stay and work in this county. For many, many years, 35 years, I drove one way, 72 miles to work in Norcross. So those are not fun days, and we've got 75% of the people traveling outside the county. So looking at what y'all are telling us, we look forward to moving forward to see how the makeup of the IBA and airport committees will be, who will serve on those. I'd like to request that from our legislature and go along with what you asked us. With the day and time of litigation, I couldn't wait any longer to try to implement some things, not knowing when they would come, because everything we do gets challenged. From the time we walked out of the meeting at 10 o'clock, the 10 o'clock meeting on Tuesday, till we walked into the 2 o'clock meeting, we got a letter from the City of Austin, and there's copies of it here, if y'all care, to have that saying that they're going to the FAA and they're going to make sure that, you know, our contracts were good, and if they weren't, they'd be suing us on behalf of a few citizens in this county. And looking at that and knowing how that type of thing operates, I couldn't wait for much longer, because so many times things get held up and we have to wait for a decision. And I didn't want to lose an airport director, and I didn't want to lose an asset for the county. So that's purely my motivation. That's the only reason I came tonight to talk to y'all, to mainly thank you for what you've done here as a committee, and that nothing that you did was ignored, and in fact will probably be implemented with all the different people who will serve on the board. So I'm happy that y'all done what you've done, and I just want to thank you. So and I'll take a question if you have.
We thought that you talked about the timing of it, but can you talk a little bit more about the transfer of the land too? And some of the concerns of what we've been trying to address is there's a lot of frustration about accountability of the airport authority. So one of our themes is trying to have some direct connection to an elected official by these different appointments.
And I think you do that with who y'all decide needs to serve on the various boards. Maybe the same people that serve on IBA doesn't serve on airport. I'm just serving because that was part of what I was handed to do. But I think you control that by who you decide should serve on those committees, and some of those will be elected officials, some of them won't be. But, you know, it almost makes me, it breaks my heart when I see people that give their time, just like y'all have, and you get criticized for what you've done. And that's the same thing with these IBA and airport. I know Ken Thigpen spent 40 years on the IBA, and we give an award now in his honor, but boy, he was talking about like it all. But I think you can have all the credibility in the world and know that your asset out there will be used for jobs and to do that. In fact, we heard this week there's a Midwest company looking at our hangar out there for an MRO. So MBAA is coming up. There's a lot of great opportunity for that airport out there, and you know, have it in the hands of professional airport people. But I want to thank y'all again for all of it.
Thanks, Dave. All right, so the next item is looking over the minutes. Our last meeting, August 28th. Really great job, John. You circulated them around. Folks had an opportunity to look at them. Is there any comments or edits to the agenda from our last meeting?
No.
Anyone? Can I get a motion to approve the comments?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So the minutes are approved. Review the committee's charter, goals and objectives. Well, our goals and objectives have been talked about. It's just time to wrap them up. We've got the different, we spent a lot of time on the board composition last time. Larry, you kind of took the lead, made those notes up there.
Yeah.
I believe.
That's right.
Is there any additional comment or discussion on that? I mean, obviously, the way this IGA has come out now, that intergovernmental agreement, at least in my view, it seems like the board's going to even be more critical as far as how they handle things.
Yeah, I think, my personal opinion is that we just go ahead and, I don't know if we do it here, or we can do it further, but just go ahead and really just outline how many members do we all agree need to be on there, and then really go through the process of how we get there. I think most of us agree that, you know, the cities and each of the post commissioners should be represented. So I think that's one step that we already have. But if there's any additional members that we want to have, be it from 7 to 9, then I think we have to have that discussion. That's my assessment based off of the notes that we have.
And I talked to Howard Maxwell, and he made the comment that for positions to the election commission, that the Georgia delegation for Benton County votes on a person, which I thought was a good idea to model that on one or two of these other positions. Therefore, Howard Maxwell, Micah Gravely, Bill Heath all have to vote on somebody.
I have no issues with that.
Yeah, I don't know the exact how it was drafted, but you know, there's a similar concept that they use for that board position. It seemed like that would be a good idea.
Right.
I had a little bit different idea on the selection. It would be the 4 post commissioners that would be on there, the 2 cities, and the one that Mike was talking about. then take the chairman and put him over on a steering committee as the chairman of the steering committee for the airport authority, or more like an advisory board. That way everybody's represented, but they're not all tied straight into the, doing of the airport authority. That would let the chairman step out and actually work as an advisory board for the airport commission.
When you say the chairman, you mean an appointee by the
Or
chairman?
appointee,
Yeah.
or if he wants to do it himself, he can do it himself. That would put us at 7 on the airport authority, and then whatever we come up with for the steering committee or advisory board would be secondary. And my thoughts on the advisory board is they would work with a 5-year plan and some of the stuff and make recommendations on how to put this thing into a package for presentations. But we're close on the membership.
So is 7 enough? So 4 commissioners and the chairman.
Currently,
That's
right.
5, 6, 7, 8, actually.
Well, currently they have none.
That's why I had the commissioner and the chairman off.
So, I mean, theoretically, you could have either the board of commissioners vote on one person to represent them as well, or you can go down the road of allowing a representative, an appointee from the IBA. Since the IBA does have some property out of the airport, that's the only other choice that I think we had all discussed.
I missed my little one here, by the way. I was gonna have the director of the IBA, which would be Blake at this time, be the chairman of the airport authority. That one just, oops, I forgot that.
That's how it is now.
Yeah. Well, no.
No, it's not.
Calvin's chairman.
Calvin's
Yeah. They elect a chairman.
Yeah.
So just to recap, we got the commissioner, we got 4 posts, 2 cities, and 1 elected by the Georgia Tech delegation is 8.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have the chairman in there, which would be 6.
Right, so if we get there, we get to 7. If we keep the chairman, but we keep the delegation, we have to find one more. So that's where I know that there was discussion, at least by myself, and I believe one other person for the IDA.
So you're suggesting the 1 extra would come, basically a nomination from the IBA, from their membership?
That's correct. Not necessarily an IBA member.
I would put Blake on there.
What, the airport director?
Yeah. That would be the.
Would that be the 9th?
5, 6, 7, 8.
That would be the 9th.
ninth
Right.
one. No.
No, I think the airport director
He reports to
is
the
a
board.
step down
Okay.
from the
Yeah.
board. He
They
reports to the
would
board
basically
and-
hire the director, right? So there might be a conflict.
Yeah, that's why I don't think the director should be on the board.
Yeah.
Take the chairman out and set up the advisory board.
And I don't think the
Seven.
IBA and the 2 ought to be mixed.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I've changed my
I don't
mind. I
think
don't
they
think
should
there
meet
needs
on
to
the
be an
same
IBA person on there.
How about having 2 people from the state appointed to the board?
We have one on the advisory committee and then one on the actual airport authority.
We're trying to get to 9.
Okay, yeah.
So we could have one from our House delegation, one from our Senate delegation.
The other option is currently there are 3 at-large people that are nominated by the current board.
The current Board of Commissioners.
Correct.
Yeah.
What's to say that we don't continue that where we allow one to be nominated? It's an at-large.
So commissioner, 4 posts, 2 mayors, 1 from the Georgia delegation, 1 from the whole board of commissioners.
Yeah.
You get 9.
Yeah. Okay. And you keep it the same 9. The only reason why I don't, my personal feeling about board commissioner, regardless of who the board commissioner is today or the board commissioner is 40 years, I still think they should have representation on the airport.
That's great.
And to say that they'd be part of the advisory board, we haven't gotten into how often the advisory board should be.
No, I was saying that all the posts would have, all the commissioners on the
Right,
post
but I was
would
saying
have.
the chairman, so.
The chairman, yeah, you said.
Oh, I'm sorry, if I misspoke, I meant the chairman, so.
So give the makeup of the 9 here.
Right now, I've got the chairman of the board of commissioners gets 1. The 4 posts get 1 each. Dallas hire the Georgia State delegation and one Board of Commissioners post in total for one person. That's what my notes have right now.
Now, the clarification is up, kind of like what you were going with as well on the Senate. Does the Georgia delegation include both the House and the Senate, or was that?
Yes.
Okay, then,
Any House or Senate representative as a part of their district in Fulton County can go into that. And they have their little caucus or whatever, and they select a person for the airport authority.
okay.
So it'd be a total of 9.
Yeah.
We need a motion on that?
Is there any more discussion?
I don't know that it's necessary to have, I know you're kind of filling a gap in your mind number-wise, but I don't know that it's necessary to have another one picked by the entire Board of Commissioners. If each commissioner is choosing one, then you end up with 5 people up there. They're already having to agree with the one that the post or the chairman picks. Okay, we're still voting on them as a whole, but when you put those people, whoever those folks are, those 5, they're back to picking one person between the 5. I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know, there's also things where the chairman of the airport authority may only vote if there needed to be a vote from the chairman, whoever that chairman is, because they're gonna pick who the chairman is. Y'all haven't really discussed that, whether they're gonna pick the chairman or somebody else is gonna pick the chairman. Right now, we vote on the chairman.
In my mind, the post representative wouldn't be voted on by the whole board. It would be selected by that representative, that commissioner.
Okay, but, right, and it can be, and that's fine, but typically we're still, the way it operates now, whoever the chairman's picking or whoever's being picked, this board is still voting on it. And we cannot do that, but you see my point, right now we are doing that. We're also voting right here to pick the chairman of the airport authority.
I think the authority ought to elect some chairman.
I was gonna say, much like we do.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at it is it shouldn't be any different than the way we were. We were appointed by our representatives, and then we chose amongst ourselves who we wanted to be the secretary and who we wanted to be the chairman. I think the airport's authority board should have that same capabilities. I don't think it should be selected for them or put upon them.
Now, did the whole board have to vote on your selection for this committee? Or did you just?
No, we chose, but that was a little different,
Okay.
and we could do that,
That's-
but the way it's set up right, I'm just explaining the way it's set up right now, those people that are at large are still voted by this board right now. I know
Right, at
things different,
large, yeah.
but we're still talking about terms, whatever terms it's gonna be, alternate terms, offsetting terms. And you can stick with that, and I think it's a good idea for the board, for the airport authority, the board to choose their chairman. And there's term limits on that, whatever it is that's set. But you can also look at it that the chairman doesn't vote unless there's a tie. You don't have to look at it that we have to have 7 or 9 or 11.
The
But
problem
you
with
can't-
having the whole Board of Commissioners essentially ratify all of the selectees, you could get into a deadlock and we could never have an authority. I would rather see it where each one of the authorities appoint their own delegate to be on the committee, and then they are automatically on it by virtue of the fact that an elected official or a group of
Right.
elected officials has made a determination that they represent their post or their constituency. And if the chairman only votes in a tie-breaking situation, then you don't need an odd number.
If the chairman only votes in a tie-breaking situation, you don't need an odd number to begin with. You don't always know, you can have 7 or 9 and only 6 of them show up to begin with.
Right, exactly.
So that covers you with the chairman not voting.
I like having 9, that way it's kind of like the Supreme Court.
Step at a time.
Five.
Hard to make a decision.
Large number. They'll make 3
I
decisions.
guess what I'm getting at is if you've already got 5 commissioners here that are all choosing one, I don't know that we need to put these 5 or any 5 in the position where they gotta go and vote on another one.
Yeah.
At large,
Yeah.
is what I'm saying, because then you've got this board voting on that. If you're letting the cities and the commissioners pick something, then let them pick something, but, you know.
The other option is to break it up where the House votes and then the Senate.
What about the people?
Why can't one
That's
be
a good
elected?
idea. What about the people?
Why can't one be elected?
Yeah,
By the citizens?
Well, that would be a
Probably
change to
six.
the
No, by the
Constitution
citizens.
One
because
of
we would
them
have
has
to
a
add
residence
an
of
elected
those two.
host of that.
No, the citizens of Polk County.
Since everybody else is around.
What about the users? We're the most dangerous.
What about the users of the airport?
Excuse me.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have this discussion again, but.
Yeah.
But I think, since you did get that in,
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I think,
I don't think that we can create an elected
No.
position. But
could we get an airport-related kind of, like Georgia Airport Association, the actual airport authority? Could they as a whole?
That gets back to the same problem we had with Chamber of Commerce. You've got a non-governmental organization
Right.
that's
Right.
putting forward a member. I think we should stick with elected officials or groups of elected officials so that there is a tie
Accountability.
That's a good
back,
point.
back to people who were elected.
Well, I can tell you right now, not to be smart, but there has been no ties in what we've had so far. I mean, I'm just saying, there hasn't been, Mark's with me down there, I see the look. There had been no ties at work, but I think it's good on any board, for the chairman of any board, not to vote unless it's a tiebreaker.
And I agree with that, and I think your other
Man.
point is well taken. If you have 9, there's no guarantee all 9 are going to show up. You may still wind up with an even number.
All they gotta do is have a quorum and then they can go
Right.
to business, and they've
Right.
done it plenty of times. So you still got that one person, that chairman is supposed to be there, and that chairman, whoever he or she is, if they don't vote unless there's a tie, you should, for the most part, you should be covered.
Okay, so then who selects the chairman?
That
The
board.
group.
So are we still at 9?
No, we would be at 8.
We're gonna be at 8 members and one would just be abstaining from voting unless needed.
Well, we would be at 8 if we let the whole House and Senate delegation pick one, or we could be at 9 if we let the House delegation pick one and the Senate delegation pick one.
That's true.
What does the House or Senate delegation picking do for us?
It gives us 2 more members.
What does it really do for us?
That's
Well,
it.
I mean,
Well, we'll just go
theoretically,
seven.
I mean, in all reality, the way the act was created back in 1972, they report back to the General Assembly. Theoretically, they report back to the states. So the state should have some representation, I would believe. And we can do that through the elected officials, through the House and the Senate.
Who represent this county.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept is at least you have some connection back to elected officials.
Right.
But, and I was gonna ask David and Todd this, I mean, when you appoint somebody, is that pretty much the end of it? You never hear from them again, or you only hear from them if how does that work?
If we've got somebody appointed, I've got somebody on the Fire Tax Advisory Board every month when they have their meetings, he knows I expect to hear from him to tell me what went on in that meeting. And if the meeting's coming up and there's something that he feels like I need to be there for, then he'll call and say, hey, I think you need to be here today.
So they're your eyes and ears, they're reporting back to you, they're keeping you in the loop.
Yeah.
Because if something goes wrong, voters are gonna come after you or something.
Which is not what all of us have had on this board.
Well, that's what we're trying to accomplish here,
That's-
though.
Do what?
That's what we're trying to.
That's what we're trying.
Oh, I know, yeah, exactly, so, you know, the 5 commissioners, the 2 cities, you got 7, you pick somebody from the representatives that actually represent in here, in this county, Howard and Paulette and Micah, and if you let them pick somebody, and somebody lives in the county, you got 8, chairman doesn't vote. And I think that board votes on that chairman, I think that's a good idea.
The chairman votes in a tiebreaker.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Which,
I would be good
if
with
that's the
that
case, the
personally.
chairman would have never voted the last 10 years I'm here.
Mhm.
It just wouldn't happen, so, but I think that's what you do, you set the term limits on whatever that is.
So the chairman elected by the other members on the board doesn't vote unless a tiebreaker.
Correct.
Yeah, I can do that.
I mean,
What does that accomplish?
well, it just, you're trying to build your numbers up to get an odd number, and it's not necessary, because, you don't have all your board members there all the time anyway. So if you get your numbers up to 9, and somebody doesn't show up at each meeting, you're still down to 8.
I just had a
So
brainstorm.
your chairman is gonna be your tiebreaker, and it's not gonna happen. Tiebreaker's not, you know, I'd love to see somebody have to vote for a tiebreaker. I'd love to see that, but we haven't seen that.
Yeah, to some extent, that creates a little drama. Put somebody on the hot seat.
It does. It does. So,
I had an idea when you were talking about that. What if we did have a board of advisory, a board of advisors, and the chairman of the board of advisors was the 9th member? I was trying to figure out who was involved with this, and I was thinking FAA and Georgia Tech and all this other stuff. If we set up a board of advisors, have one vote from the board of advisors on the committee.
Personally, I think the advisors should be on an as-needed basis rather than a permanently standing committee. It's like this situation that we're in now, we've had a situation come up where the Board of Commissioners felt it necessary to bring in an outside group of advisors to look at things and make recommendations. But it's the first time in 10 years that they've needed that, so you don't really need that advisory board to be standing at all times.
I would think you would.
I think if we,
I think that's one of the reasons we got lawsuits.
I think the suggestion was to have, even like Cecilia had made at our first meeting, really, was to have an advisory board, I believe, was it 5 years, 10 years, something like that. But I think at that time, you're just gonna review what's happened over a set time period and make recommendations based off of basically learning lessons. But I don't believe that they should be for the future, right? I don't think it's necessarily something that needs to be ongoing, concurrent
It
to
could
the
be
current
once a
board.
quarter, but I mean, with the 5-year plans and all the budgets and everything else that's going on, I think that would be a good idea to have a citizens advisory board.
But in a sense, it is a citizens board because everybody's appointing a citizen. So are we gonna have a citizens board to look over the citizens board?
That's a good thought, too.
Well, John delineated, made distinctive responsibilities for that advisory board, staying out ahead on the CIP, the capital improvement plan, so, just kind of being out in front of the normal airport authority. So you might find some benefit in that.
But you're asking people to dedicate a lot of time for a marginal benefit, looks to me.
If I could just bring us back and try and finish up on
I can say just one thing, Mike. I think the main thing here that y'all dealt with is, the main thing is, we had an IBA and Airport Authority Board. I don't care how you look at it, they're the same board. Same makeup. And so the number.
legislation.
I understand, but it's still same makeup. We had people on, so you get rid of that, which everybody agrees, I think everybody agrees with that. The other thing that you deal with is you got representation. When the fire tax advisory guy that I have on the board calls me up and says, this is the issue we have, we need to do this, for our fire department, he's given me information. That's something that I did not have and do not have on the Airport Authority Board. It's not there. And if all the post commissioners, the chairman of 2 cities nominate somebody, then you've got that. It changes the game. So I think y'all there's a lot of great ideas here, and I think come up with your number. You got everybody that's represented. It ties back to elected officials. It keeps everybody informed, and that's been the biggest problem that we've had all the way up until this week. Still keeping everybody informed.
Yeah, I think we're down to chasing the 1%, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. I think most of y'all agree on most of that.
So would we all be okay with the number being 8 and the chairman only votes to break a tie? And the chairman would be selected by the board itself?
I'm good with that.
Yes.
I want to make a motion that we approve that.
Second.
I had made a motion.
Make sure that gets in the minutes.
Get that
And I think Todd really did a good job articulating what concepts and how we came to that,
Yeah.
so.
So you want to
We're gonna
repeat
vote
that
on
so we
that?
know what we're voting on?
Okay.
Repeat your motion.
Yes.
You want me to say something for John?
No, I'm looking at
We have one from the city of Hiram, appointed by the mayor of Hiram, one appointed by the mayor of Dallas, one from each of the posts, one from the chairman of the post commissions, one from the chairman of the commissioners, and, 5, 6, 7, one from the House of Representatives or Representatives group, and then the chairman would be the last one, but he would be the,
The chairman would be elected.
he would be
from that
elected
group.
from it and would only vote during the
In a tiebreaker.
tiebreakers.
So that's what we're voting on.
I've got so many ones and twos around here, I got them mixed up.
So a total composition of 8.
Right.
They are direct appointees. They're not confirmed by the Board of Commission. They're direct appointees, select their own chairman. And we should vote on that, and then I think talk about when their term is and term limits is a separate issue.
Yep, I guess I'll second. I mean,
You gonna explain it?
I understand it, I mean,
I motion to approve it. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, so now we need to talk about term limits and when the term runs.
I think there ought to be some language too that they can't serve on another board.
That is correct.
I don't know if that might staff you already.
No, I don't believe so.
So we want to close the door that can't also serve on the IBA or something else.
Okay, so that'd be a separate recommendation that all of the appointees should not be joint appointees to IBA and the Airport Authority in order to keep independence between those two boards.
Or other boards.
Other boards, you know, they may have a transportation.
Any other
board,
board.
So
like a
any other
fire
county.
Any other county board.
Okay.
Got that?
I'd let the people that are making the appointments police themselves.
Sometimes.
I don't see why we need to direct them to do that.
Wouldn't somebody be crazy to agree to serve on 2 volunteer boards at the same time?
Political
Yeah. I don't see the need for us to say
police
that.
them.
What do you guys think? How does that work in reality, Todd and David?
I'm good. They don't need to serve on, the IBA board. You could say they can't serve on any other board, and it takes care of it, period.
I think we have
I'm
to
all
say
for
that
that,
because that's what
yes.
we've had before. We've had him serving on both.
Yeah.
Our whole point here is we don't want that.
Yeah, just say that and it takes care of it.
Right, and I think we do need to put it in the language because you're operating under the assumption that a post commissioner wouldn't volunteer somebody for 2 different posts or two different commissions. So we should stipulate it. That's what we want, that's what we're gonna recommend.
We're trying to keep them separate,
Right,
and that's the way to do it.
yeah.
So official, the language should read something like official county authorities or boards.
Don't you guys have that on other things?
I can't think of any duplications other than IBA and the.
IBA and the airport authority is the only duplication we got.
I mean, do they serve on the zoning commission or they serve on something else? What we're trying to say is they just serve on the airport, that's it.
See, and that duplication was by law, so,
Yeah.
so we're doing what, I mean, we're changing the law, so I don't see a need to force non-duplication.
There's about 12 boards.
You got the cemetery board, you got the parks and recs board, you
I'm
got
gonna serve
the
on
animal
that pretty
control
soon.
board. you got the
And they're specific
That way you don't,
functions.
they can't,
You know, it's like,
I'm sorry, I can't do
somebody
that.
that sits on the cemetery board probably won't qualify to sit on the
You
airport
got the
authority.
library board, I mean, water sewer,
Can I recommend a cost savings?
So in other words,
They're all
it
volunteers.
sounds like we shouldn't complicate things by adding that in. It would be self-policing.
Well, I don't know, if it was like Mark was saying, I mean, one of the biggest consternations with this whole thing is they're on the board, so that's why I feel the need to be explicit in some regard. That's why I'm,
I agree.
Yeah.
so, whether or not it's just that they can't serve on the IBA, or it's just maybe any other authority created.
Well, do we say, we kind of understand why there's a conflict of interest between the IBA and the airport authority. Would there be any conflict of interest between any other board? And if not, then we only, well, the transportation board might go on.
I would
Zoning could,
I would just remove all possibilities of
And just say
I was about to say,
any board.
because you're gonna fire technically, because you're gonna have a fire station out there, so they may be more beneficial to vote
Okay,
in favor
so
of anything that's fire
nominees
related.
should not serve on multiple boards,
Right.
multiple county boards.
Yes.
Remember, these are just broad concepts, we're not drafting the
Right, right,
language
right,
of the statutes.
Yeah, Mike's gonna do that for us.
It's not something else.
John, you want to make another motion?
Just get paid.
I'll make another motion.
I'll second.
He hadn't made it yet.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we talked about
Okay, let's
it.
keep order here, we're starting to lose it.
Okay, so,
We see the light at the end of the tunnel.
We take input at the end.
Okay, if you're voting on something, make a difference. Just say.
I'll make a motion that we consider this.
Okay.
The only point I was trying to get to, if you eliminate them from other counties, you may pull, they may be serving on an airport administration in another county or someplace, and you may be missing a great benefit or a great asset. If you eliminate other counties, just eliminate Paulding County.
I think
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
intended
yeah,
for
yeah.
Paulding County.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
okay.
all we can do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you made a motion that all boards.
No joint appointees on any county boards.
Paulding County Board.
Paulding County boards.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We should have done this the first night.
Okay, so the next issue would be
Terms.
the terms and then term limits, right?
I have a suggestion on the term limits. I'm sure there's something I'm not seeing in here because it sounds too simple, but the, let them be determined, like the oldest person, the person who served the longest on the airport authority, maybe let them be the first one to rotate off and handle it, because you don't want them all rotating off at the same time.
Yeah, it'll be staggered.
Yeah, it's gotta be staggered. I don't know how else to do it. I've thought, and I don't know any other way.
Now the board of commissioners, every 2 years, there's 2 seats up. How does that?
Yeah.
Refresh my memory on
A
that.
3 and 2, since there's 5. Post 1 in the chair at the same time, and then the other 3 post alternating 2-year increments. Time series.
So you'd already have your stake based off of the elected officials that we want.
If you're actually gonna do a new board, and let's just pretend this was all gonna happen, you're gonna, in this, because right now, you have the chairman that sits on there, and you have the mayors that sit on there. So if these 5 and the city mayors and the representatives are gonna pick somebody, and you're gonna put a new board together, whatever's out there, you're gonna have to come up with however you need to do it. You may actually say, I'm just pulling this, shooting from the hip here. You may say that one of the cities starts off with a shorter term, and 2 of the Board of Commissioners and the House of Representatives. In other words, if they're all gonna start new, if they're all gonna start brand new, you're gonna have to start somebody's gonna have to have a 1-year term, let's pretend. 4 of them are gonna have a 1-year term, and 4 of them are gonna have a 2-year term. Or whatever your term is, and not have any more than however many consecutive terms. So there's gonna be some people starting off with a shorter term's the only way to work it out.
And mayoral elections are on odd years,
Right.
so they're not in the same as the BOC.
Right.
But the one that gets appointed, say from Hiram, if they've only got 2 years left on their term, and this is a 4-year appointee, he's gonna be gone in 2 years. So you're automatically gonna be able to stagger it.
So let's think we can all agree that staggered, I think that's enough detail, we don't have to work out.
Staggered by the election process.
Right.
In other words, our recommendation is that they be staggered, but let them work the details when they write the legislation. Is that what you're suggesting?
My thought on that would be, for example, when the new commissioners come in, they would get to appoint their people. When if they go out and the other commissioners say next year, when we have an election, what, is it, 1 and 2 next year? Those guys, when David Austin and David Carmichael appoint theirs, when their election time comes up, it may only be a 1-year term for their appointee and their person.
So in other
Either
words,
them or-
each appointee would follow the
Follow the
elected official
election.
who appointed them.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then it's
That way- that
automatically
way it's
It's
staggered.
automatic.
Yeah, just that way
And
it
you
mirrors
appoint
what's
when you
going on
come
at the
in.
county level.
Right.
Right.
Now you had mentioned something that I liked, and that was, and it would be the same process, but you would put it on a staggered basis where if the, what is the commissioner's term, 2 years? 4 years? Put them on 4-year cycles, but let them appoint them 2 years into their term. And that would shift them where you had an overlap in between two, and you wouldn't have airport authority people that would be
You wouldn't have them all,
loaded, I guess you would say.
because of the staggering in the elections, you wouldn't have them all rotating anyway. I think if we just
Yeah, it's-
keep it simple and let the
That other
nominee
gets kinda
follow the
complicated.
elected official.
Whether it's a short term or a longer
Right.
term,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
irrelevant, that's the way it falls.
And we don't even know if they'll put this into the law.
And if someone leaves the board for
It's a
whatever
recommendation.
reason, move out of the county or whatever, and that elected official appoints another person to take their place, they still just run to the end of that elected
Yeah.
official's term.
That's just like
Yeah, so it'd be simple.
vice president taking over for the
Right.
president, he just finishes.
So the only one you would have to address is the one that's the delegation from the Senate and the House, and you can make that follow the same schedule as the chairman of the Board of Commissioners.
So you have 3 on, 3 off,
Yeah.
on 2-year
And that would
staggers.
also would fit
Plus
that
the two
into
mayors,
cities.
yeah.
The only other recommendation I would like to make is that we actually set term limits.
Amen.
But that's a separate discussion. Let's finish this and then we can talk about
That's
it.
fine, I just wanted to get that out there.
So do we need a motion that the nominee will follow the elected term of the official who appoints them?
I second that.
Okay? Got
Now,
that, John?
now, when I write the notes, I'm gonna put these in underneath that we selected to have 8 members and all that stuff, and the terms will be.
I think that would be fine.
It's not
We're just
gonna be-
voting on them individually,
Yeah.
kind of to keep order.
They're gonna mirror the elected official that
Yes.
appointed them.
Except for the Georgia caucus nominee, which will follow the chairman of the
Yeah.
commission.
I can say this is gonna be a long week on that.
The other thing you brought up too, we did put in there, and maybe it's implicit, or it needs to be more explicit, that everybody has to be a resident of the county.
Yes.
That might be a separate recommendation. Or maybe just say the nominee will be a resident of Albany County.
It's made a requirement, just like you can't be on every board.
Yeah.
And what I've seen, and I know this is a different line item, but talking on that same line, there are certain airports authorities where people have to have been residents for a minimum of 6 months. So some of them are up to 5 years. Most of them tend to be about a year. But that's something that we can discuss. But I just wanted to let you know that it's not automatic, like day one, you come in, you can automatically be on the.
So a Paulding County resident for 6 months would be reasonable, right?
What do you think that the commissioners would appoint somebody that wasn't a resident?
They might unknowingly do so.
How about throwing in a registered voter of Paulding County?
Can we legally require that? I mean, you can legally require a residency. I don't think you can legally require a voter.
Yeah, I did not see that in any of the other airports authorities that have their information
Yeah.
posted. I
So-
didn't see that at all.
I wasn't that hung up on a 6 month. Is everybody like that 6 month, or
What would you prefer?
just a resident at the time they're appointed?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think they're gonna move into the
0
county
months.
just.
They're not gonna learn.
Believe it or not, they do that in football season.
6 months.
No, I mean,
I personally, I could go with you, me personally, but that's just me.
I could go to 0 if they're appointed.
You're assuming that they've been here for a while.
The
Well,
elected
they hadn't
officials,
been-
the
they
elected
hadn't been here
officials
for
should
long
police
enough,
that
I know.
aspect of it.
You know, they'd have to be here long enough to meet whoever their elected person nominating them is.
Okay, so,
I have
do I
another-
make a motion that this need to be a Paulding County resident at the time they're appointed?
I would
Yes.
second that.
Yes.
Okay.
Comment, can I just say something? You know, right now, we're okay, but, you know, 40 years down the road, when we're addressing this again, what if a commissioner moves somebody to Paulding County just to serve in that capacity? So I do think there should be a length of residence.
So they can just move them 6 months ahead of time.
You're right.
So, I mean, it's hard
We're not
to
talking
plan for
about-
every
I
contingency.
would see
Qualifications
that
to be
if
on
we're
the high school
bringing a
football
student in
team.
to play
Yeah.
football, calling high school, I don't think that they would go this far on the government
But
approach.
we also want someone who's going to know the county.
So we need to vote on that, sir?
And know, understand what's going on.
So, yeah, I make a motion that they be a resident at the time they're appointed.
May I ask this question? Did we officially vote
No,
on?
we didn't
the-
vote that.
Yeah, so can we make an official vote on the original motion that you seconded?
Which I forgot what was.
That's my
The
whole
terms.
point, the terms.
Oh, yes, that, we need to vote on that before we talk about the residency.
No,
Yeah,
we,
no,
no,
we
second,
didn't.
but we hadn't asked.
Oh.
for it.
Yeah.
Who made that motion?
I think I seconded it or made the
It's,
motion.
Gary,
got a
you-
motion.
I made it and you seconded it.
And I
Okay.
seconded it.
So the vote before everybody is the staggered terms that mirror the elected official who appointed that.
Yes.
and that the
Except-
House delegation or the state delegation would mirror the Board of Commission.
Right. Got that, John?
Appointee time period.
Yeah, I'm transferring it over where maybe reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, so now we've talked about term limits.
But we need to vote on the county
Or
residency.
residency, I'm sorry, it's residency, that's right.
We've done so much work leading up to now, and we're just voting stuff. Yeah, so I made a motion that the Paulding County, that the appointee be a resident of Paulding County at the time they're appointed.
Yeah, I would second that.
John, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Got that, Jonathan?
Yes.
Now term limits.
Term limits. I made the suggestion, and anybody can say yes or no, or you make your own recommendations. My recommendation is that there's no more than 2 consecutive, but that's not to say that they couldn't be renominated at a later time period after they've served their 2, but it's just no more than 2 consecutive. That way, there's
Yeah.
enough,
So how many years would that be if they did?
8 years.
8 years total.
Yeah, I'm all for that, too.
Yeah,
I make the motion to approve that it's 2-year terms.
2 terms, not 2 years.
2 terms, yeah.
2 terms.
2 terms of 4 years.
And after being off for a term, they could be back on.
2
2
consecutive terms.
consecutive
Two,
terms.
yeah, 2 consecutive terms.
2-year, 2 consecutive.
2 consecutive 4-year
No,
terms.
4 years, 2 consecutive.
I've got a question about that, Larry. So, say Mr. Carmichael rotates off and he nominates Joe Blow. How does Joe Blow stay on for that second 4-year term of Mr. Carmichael's gone and somebody else takes his seat?
He don't.
Right, the new person
No
would appoint
guarantee tied
somebody.
to Mr. Carmichael.
Right.
It doesn't, it's not an automatic 2
Okay.
years. It's
Whoever
it's a
Mr.
maximum
Carmichael
of 2 terms.
nominates, of whoever fills his seat,
Yeah.
likes him, they stay on.
Right.
If they wanted.
He could choose
That is
to reappoint.
correct.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah, he
but then
can
they
pick
would be
somebody
limited
else
to
right
2
for
at that time. Or the new elected official that takes over Mr. Carmichael's position would nominate their person,
Right.
and then they would have only 2 terms to serve out.
So the motion on the floor is that members of the board of the authority are limited to 2 consecutive terms only.
Under the same, under the.
Period. Motion
Yeah, sure.
Motion approved.
Let me ask one thing about that, just to give you something, because it'll probably come up. All these people were appointed, let's just pretend that they're appointed next year, same time. Dave is gonna be in office 2 more years.
Mhm.
So Dave appoints somebody. 2 years from now, Dave runs again and wins. Dave keeps that same person on there. He likes the job he or she's doing. To me, that's 2 terms.
That's
I agree.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
So if somebody dies, somebody moves or whatever, and a new person is elected, and they, for instance, when Tony Graham ran to fill Howell seat, it was that he basically filled a 2.5-year term, finished it. So so that person would finish that term, and then if Tommy kept him the next 4 years, that would be it.
That's right.
So he would serve 6.5
So
years.
the term's not 4 years. The term's the
Two
term
terms.
of
Two
appointment.
consecutive
Yeah.
terms.
2 consecutive terms, we're not saying it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
complete term,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we needed a vote on that, right?
We do.
We had a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passed.
Do we want to specify that they have aviation experience? So that would be up to the elected official appointee. Okay.
I would think that you would probably want to have more of a business background, aviation business background, than just a hardcore aviation. But that's just my
I mean, my personal opinion is they should have general knowledge of aviation.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be somebody that comes from the construction side of it, they could be somebody that comes from the financing side. Somebody
But
that
it
could
will be
able
at the
to-
discretion of the person nominating.
Right.
Okay, that's fair.
That's the most important part, though, that you have to put on the board. And like you were saying yourself, how important that is. So to leave it that open, I mean, you all could have been appointed to the Airport Authority Board.
Well, I think the idea is that the elected official is going to appoint somebody that they feel has the expertise to do the business.
I would almost say that 90% of people sitting here probably could be on the board with aviation background.
May I offer an idea? You have on all of these boards an attorney, a non-voting consultant, advisor, serves in an advisory capacity. Given that aviation is such a highly technical enterprise, and I don't just mean one particular side of it or other. I'm not talking about just the pilots or the owners or the businessmen or those who use aviation, everybody who uses the airport, but it's a very highly technical enterprise. It is also a heavily regulated enterprise. And I would presume you're still going to have an advisory attorney, non-voting member, for the specific use, for the specific application of both the airport authority and maybe even the steering committee. And maybe you consider that these positions would be occupied by the same person, because you want to have the steering in the same, going in the same direction. I recommend that you appoint,
So
even if
the
it's a
attorney-
non-voting, even if it's a non-voting member.
So the attorney is a
Aviation
paid
professional.
position that's currently paid for, I believe, by the Paulding County Authority, and they've got the right to hire anyone that they see fit to be consultants. They've got consultants, they've got engineering firms.
I mean, Ben, you've all probably served on some board or other. It's your responsibility to bring all the expertise you need for your
Exactly.
job. And if
That's
not,
what I'm saying.
You're not
Yeah.
doing your job.
Right.
I meant for someone, I meant for to advise the board and the steering committee.
But that would be up to them.
Aviation-related matters, because county or local and state, especially local aviation authorities have gotten crossways in the past. I'm trying to avoid a train wreck here. Have gotten crossways in the past with the federal government, FAA, and state governments on aviation matters that they just don't understand. Look at the mess that Santa Monica's in right now. There's a cat fight going on out there, and they have no input from the user.
Well, I just think it's up, you gotta have competent people on the board that know their limitations, and they gotta bring on experts when they need them, otherwise.
That's right.
They're gonna be
They would be employees of the board, not
subcontractors, whatever.
nominated or.
Is that covered in the code of ordinances now, or is anybody seen it?
No,
It's just something that
And
they
we've got
choose to
an
do on
attorney
their
there
own.
now, so.
I mean,
And they do have an
I understand your
Oh, yeah.
point, but we really can't really legislate.
Bill, they're the
I
same.
don't really see where that would work.
and not only that, I mean, even as we've done as a steering committee, where we feel like we don't have enough knowledge about something, we've asked for the subject matter subject matter
Right.
experts to come in and speak to us. So we have a better
Mr. Chairman, in
understanding.
the interest of moving the meeting along, I would like to suggest that we hold off all of the comments from the audience until the end, because otherwise we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, we kind of slipped into that
Yeah.
trap, so. So let's go ahead and do that, if we can just hold it off to the end.
All right, so do we need to vote on anything at this point?
I think we're caught up on those, aren't we?
Yeah, we're caught up on votes.
Okay.
Are we caught up on recommendations?
Well, we was talking about terms and term limits, have we covered that?
I believe so.
Mhm.
Like we
We
voted to do.
covered the,
Is there anything left on our, one of the big topics was the board, and we pretty much hit that
knocked
pretty
that one
heavy.
ahead, I think.
Killed that one.
That's done. Do you want to pull up the next tree?
You know, we just feel like we've accomplished something, cover that one up. You step into bonds.
I just
Step
picked up the
into
first
bonds.
one, so.
Are we gonna hold off on the advisory board for right now?
I was originally a proponent of having some type of advisory board, but Terry's kind of persuaded me that if you've got a competent board, that, you know, perhaps they will convene their own advisory when they see
Yeah.
fit. I don't know what, you guys have any other,
Or if the board
Rather
of
than
commissioners
mandating
wanted
it.
to convene an advisory board, if they felt they needed some review of a specific topic.
The next 10 years are gonna be really important, obviously, according to the intergovernmental agreement. Do you think it might serve a good purpose to have an advisory board that meets every, maybe even 6 months, right, or quarter? And just, well, like citizen input, just making sure that they've got their bases covered on that. And
I think
got
that's
some
a
ideas.
fantastic idea.
Um,
Have a citizens advisory board meeting, especially right before your financial, where you're bringing up your 5-year plan and getting ready to present your bonds and all that other stuff.
I think it's a good point, but is it
I think it's
legislation or more of a
Yeah.
recommendation?
Do we,
perhaps?
yeah, to the county, or is it something that we need to put in? I don't think that that's something we put in state law, but I think we ought to do
Because
it.
I see as this, our report comes together, there's gonna be a lot of ideas we're gonna have at the end, that these are suggestions that you ought to do.
That are outside, that are outside of the code of ordinance.
Okay.
But make sure you get that one down, though. I think that's really good. Is everybody kind of on board with that?
I don't know if every 6 months, I'd be more for, be it every 2 years or 5 years, so that you have some legs, you have some growth, you can see what's actually happened over a specific time period. I think looking at it at either every quarter or every 6 months, you're getting a very quick snapshot, but you're not seeing what was the overall impact over time.
I was thinking more of a, getting citizens' inputs on, especially when you come up for your annual finances, when you're getting ready to do your budgets and stuff like that. Just to have an advisory board to come in, and it might be 6 months. I would have one every quarter myself, just to bring them together, where you went over your business cases on where you're at on your projects.
But
Well, I
I
think kind of a
still,
review.
I still feel like we're being redundant
Yeah.
though, because the situation we're in right now, we have a lot of elected officials on the IBA and therefore on the Paulding County Airport Authority. But if we're talking about having all volunteer citizens, you've got your citizen input by definition, and it seems to me to be redundant to have a steering committee for a citizens committee.
Then maybe Board of Advisory is not the right word, maybe it's a town hall meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and
Type
that's,
concept.
that kind of ties into one of my recommendations that I emailed out today, which was that every time the capital improvement plan is presented to the FAA, that it has to be put in front of the public 30 days in advance of the submittal to the FAA, so that everybody has a chance to actually make a recommendation. Those changes may not be effective that capital improvement plan, and maybe go to the next year, but at least everybody's had a chance to review it and has had a chance to make a comment on it.
I like to take even a little bit of a twist from what Cecilia said, to make it a town hall meeting or an open discussion type meeting where you sit down once a quarter where the airport authority goes over financials and just says, state of the union, I guess, or state of the authority.
And once again, I think these will be in our report, this is a bunch of
Yeah,
different, a
yeah.
menu of things that they can
Right.
pick.
And then you
I think
suggest
some-
This
recommendations.
It should be in the code of ordinance now.
So, let's put those ideas down. And, I guess the next thing we wanted to talk about was bonds.
I make a motion that we say that they can't do bonds, period.
So
The
that,
county yesterday.
Amen.
So to take away bonding authority.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that, given the intergovernmental agreement that's been passed. You'd be neutering the very committee that's responsible for taking care of the airport,
They're neutered anyway, they gotta come here to get it approved.
which is a
Only
good
if
check
they're
and
not strong enough
balance.
to secure the bonds.
Right.
And 20 years from now, they may be.
They may be.
Right.
And we gotta do a 20-year,
Then,
you know,
then in 20 years, let somebody that's not in the cemetery with me
But
change the code of ordinances.
okay, we'll go 10.
But the other part of the IGA was that the airports authority couldn't even present a bond agreement unless they were being backed by a separate grant that would actually repay the bond or a portion thereof, which goes along with what they're currently doing right now with the FAA. The FAA repays 90% of the bond.
Really, the only time they should be doing bonds is off their 5-year plan and their annual capital investments.
But the purpose of having to float a bond for this board is that they don't get the grant up front, they get the grant when the work is completed, I believe. Isn't that the way it works?
Once the job's complete.
Right, so they have to have the ability to issue the bond, or you're in a catch-22 situation. They can get all the grants they want, but if they can't fund them, they can't start them, and therefore they never collect on the grant.
Right.
So that's why I say if we take away the ability of the PCAA to issue bonds, we're taking away their ability to manage the airport under the current contract with the county government that was just passed. So I think that,
Much less what are the legal
It's the
ramifications
same
tonight.
thing, though.
What if-
They're tied back to these leather seats behind us, though.
What if, yeah, what if the PCA wants to issue a bond, then, and they're strong enough, but we still require that they come to the BOC for approval?
which is what they're currently doing, because they can't back their own bonds.
No, the BOC doesn't have to back the bond 20 years down the road, but they still have to give their approval to go, okay, we approve it because it's good for the citizens, go ahead and do it. Not that we're going to guarantee the
So
funds.
basically just a thumbs up, thumbs down vote.
Right.
Okay.
And they're tied, now they're strictly tied, not just indirectly from the airport authority, but it's to the Board of Commissioners are
So
responsible to the
they
citizens.
can issue
directly.
bonds if and only if they get the approval of the Board of Commissioners.
That would make sense.
Yes.
I've got a.
Regardless if they have the financing.
Okay.
Say you got a board of commissioners that comes in, they don't want anything to do with their airport, their hands off, their whole term, they ran on that. Okay, now you just cut your funding off.
That's a very good point. You should say that so that everyone hears.
But that's,
Say you get a board of commissioners that doesn't want to have anything to do with it's a hot potato, they don't want to touch the airport, they don't want nothing to do with it, and then they can't get anything passed and the airport dries up, because they can't get funding.
Yeah, so,
but that should be the will of the people then, because they put them in power.
Exactly what I was sitting here thinking about.
But let's face it, I mean, bonds is all about financing, it's about construction, it's about, so if you take away their ability or limit their ability to get financing, then you put a significant restriction on them.
That's right.
If that's your goal, to starve them, then
They don't even have the authority.
Well, they're basically starved right now because they've got to get it because they don't have the backing
Right.
capability. But 10 years down the road, they may be able to. They're just getting a thumbs up. Well, if they don't get the thumbs up, then that must be the will of the people that they don't want an airport here, or they don't want the expansion of, the airport for that capital expenditure. If not, then they're going to vote the new commissioners in, and the airport
yeah, but I
gets
think, but
off.
at the same time, this is just me thinking, if you're electing officials, and I understand that county commissioners have multiple other mindsets when it comes to other things going on in the county, that they're not specifically looking at the airport all the time. But with that being said, if you're on the board and you've been appointed by a board of commissioner, and that board of commissioner has spoken to you and said, listen, I don't really favor this going on, then you've already created that checks and balance. I don't
Right.
necessarily then agree that they should still have to come to the board if they have that financing vote, because that vote will already be on the board to begin with. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that just puts it in their face, I'm thinking that just puts it in their face that they have to give a thumbs up, and they have to,
but you gotta go to their
Go to
supervisor
their-
to get
right.
approved.
oh boy, yeah, okay, now you're seeing me vote this, rather than just someone that I appointed. Oh, well, I'm gonna have to change that individual in the next term. you know, they didn't go the way I wanted to. But now it's, okay, it's, my hand is raised, and it's either yay or nay.
My preference would be that what we've done effectively, or what has been done, is we've given absolute total full authority to managing the airport to the Paulding County Airport Authority. I think that carries with it the responsibility to be able to issue bonds to fund those construction projects. And so my preference would be to give them that authority and leave it there,
Bonding authority.
the bonding authority, as it currently states in the 72 legislation. And it's self-regulating currently because they can't back their own
Yeah,
bonds,
right.
so it's kind of a moot point.
And if they ever get to where they can issue their own bonds without the support of the commissioners here, then it's not gonna be taxpayer related.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and in addition to, but then we can take it back into what you were talking about, holding a town hall meeting every 6 months or so, or even annually, just so that they have an idea of what the public really wants.
I've got a thought on that that's not directly related to this, but it has to do with the commission itself. I've still got a hang up to the way the commission can co-sign for a bond, but yet when they issue a bond themselves, they have to go before the voters.
That is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, that to me is like counting checks. I think that we ought to have the commissioners ought to go, instead of just being able to co-sign, ought to go put it on a referendum to vote for any bond that they're obligated to county for, whether it's co-signing or,
I understand your viewpoint, but I would disagree.
why?
Because I think the airport authority needs the flexibility to
Why?
act quicker than what the
Why?
election cycle, because
What would they need in a normal situation of operation when you've got your 5-year plan, that they would need a bond on a quick turnaround basis?
Let's say they got a big manufacturer that's gonna start building wings down here. They gotta go quickly. That stuff doesn't happen in government time. Have you taken that away from them?
yeah, as we heard from Stephen when he came in, our airport will be competing with 103 other airports for any of those MROs that might come to town. And if there's another MRO or another airport out there that's got quicker ability to respond, we're gonna lose the chance.
So if we really want to see the airport prosper, I think
You
we
need to give them the flexibility, the agility. It's really about agility.
Well, I wasn't really just looking at the airport, I was just looking at the fact that the commissioners could do that for the IVA or just.
That's kind of beyond the
That's-
scope of.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying, it's outside of this,
Yeah.
and you're right, it is whatever, so.
But in that respect, if they given the ability to create the bond, now they still have to come to the board.
Now they
10
do,
years
yes.
ago, 10 years from now, they may not. So, but it may not be what people of the county want. Added X, whatever it is. Well,
Let's just
I
say,
still
let's
think-
just say this, I'll throw something out, and I know it's getting late. 10 years ago, the airport started. It's been 10 years. They still can't go get a bond. They can't even go down to the local bank and get a loan. They really can't. Right now, they can't. They've actually tried. So I'm not trying to be negative on it, but that's just the bottom line. The airport authority right now, if they need something, they're gonna have to come to the Board of Commissioners to get a bond. If it's 8 years from now and they can get a bond, and somebody gives them a bond, and they do something, they go out on some pipe dream, okay? And we can say, and I'm not, again, trying to be negative about it, we can say pipe dream, and it's not the airport authority, but we got a pipe dream in Hiram with the movie studio, okay? A pipe dream. $5.5 million worth of bonds that the IBA did, and I can tell you, we got bonds in the past, and we got bonds right now that's coming up, where these 5 people here, whoever those 5 people are sitting there, are gonna be paying that back, because it's losing $900,000 a year. If they get to a point where they can bond something and they get it, and it fails, and they fail, we're gonna end up picking up the pieces.
Yep.
We're not, we could say, hey, I'll let you lose your house, and not come bail you out.
But we're not gonna let them.
But we're not gonna let them lose the airport, it's not gonna have, we're still gonna, so I agree a little bit with your comment with, let the Board of Commissioners know what's going on. Now, that should happen But the bottom line is, a lot of the comments that were made, what if it's not the will of the people? What if that's not what the commissioners want? What if this intergovernmental agreement just went over for 10 years, but they're also asking us to pay them an average of $285,000 and some change for 10 years?
Well, it also decreases every year, so.
No, it does, but we gave them a $100,000 raise, and over the 10 years we're paying them. So I'm not trying to get off on something else. I'm saying we've given them something, but yet they're still asking for us to give them something for the next 10 years, not only money, but other things. And the things that are out there bonded right now with the IBA are backed by these citizens, because these 5 people here voted to back that from the citizens, such as the new hangar, the water tower, the different things that are, I mean, those bonds are backed. It may be their project, but it's still backed by the citizens. And we've got to sign a piece of paper that says, hey, if they don't pay you back.
But in the case of the airport, the airport is a little different in that if they are bonding something for a capital improvement for which they're going to get an FAA grant,
Yeah.
that's about as sure a
That's different,
bet
yeah.
as you can get. And so, let's say they want to add a second runway, okay? And the FAA approves that, and the FAA is going to pay for that, but they have to issue the bonds to pay for it up front. But we tie their hands and make it difficult for them to do. They may lose the opportunity for whatever that capital improvement is, and the MRO goes to
Somewhere else.
Cartersville and they put up there instead of.
And
coming to
I
Hardin
agree
County.
100%, but out there right now, we have a $1.2, $1.3 million bond on the hangar from the IBA, but it's still the airport authority doing all this.
No, it's the IBA doing
It's
all of it.
IBA, but it's
Yeah.
still for the airport.
Because we really
Okay.
don't have an airport authority, we have an IBA running an airport.
Exactly.
Let's
That's
call it
exactly
like
what
it
it
is.
is. And we've got a water tower that's out there for infrastructure,
Right.
that's still bonded. And then we've got the $3.6 million bond on what's
So you would
going on,
agree, by
which-
breaking the
which we
link
pay
between
back.
IBA and the airport authority, we've separated out that issue. That shouldn't be an issue anymore. It's an issue for the future IBA to resolve. But the airport authority is going to be concerned about capital projects for the airport. And so I think it would be a mistake to tie the hands of the airport authority when the vast majority of their projects for which they would issue bonds are going to be backed by grants from the FAA anyway. And what they're really doing is they're getting a construction loan. It is their
It is.
financing
It's
mechanism
the
for
way
getting
they're
a
financing it to
construction
get
loan.
paid back, and I agree. But everything that they do out there won't be FAA.
So back to the
Yeah,
question,
but-
do they have bonds or not?
It's your point of
That's-
the movie theater, that's a $5 million loss. Where if that happens at the airport, it's a $500,000 loss.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's less of a loss because
Yeah,
we'll be
backed by-
reimbursed by the FAA.
Right. Give it back by the FAA.
Right, well, and that's also part of the intergovernmental agreement is that the airport's authority, as the IGA was passed the other day, the airport's authority can't even come to the Board of Commissioners at this point and present a bond without it actually being backed by a grant. And in most reality, it's a grant by the FAA, and then maybe even a supplemental
some
from
sort of
GDOT.
grant.
Right, so, I mean, in essence, that's really where you're getting down to, I mean, going back to what you were saying, it's a construction loan,
Yeah.
so.
It's a very different animal than your typical IBA bond
Right.
issue. The IBA bond issues are speculative.
Right.
The airport authority bond issues are construction loans. That's how I see it.
But in the future, they may not necessarily have to be.
It wouldn't have to be, but
If they're strong enough to bond something at that time, I don't think you have to worry about it.
Because at that point, they're on their own.
right.
Do we have an intergovernmental agreement with them right now, on the bonds? Somewhere.
For the 3.6?
No, just in general, about how they handle bonding.
It's on a transaction by transaction basis.
Well, but didn't this past, and I'm just asking a question, didn't this past IGA kind of actually really spell out how those bonds will be issued in the future? I mean, I understand the bonds that were issued in the past were not really captured under that IGA. If it's anything going forward from next week's meeting at the airport's authority going forward, am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should be, and I think the meeting's the 24th.
Okay.
They changed it, moved it back.
That's right.
John made a motion to strip the bonding authority of the airport authority. I guess we've kind of gone around, but does anybody second that motion?
Oh, man. That's 2 in a row.
Hey, you're going 2 for 3. It's actually-
That's right.
That's better than the Braves are doing right now.
So it sounded like that didn't pass.
I'll recount.
Do we have a hanging chat somewhere?
I do like the idea that leaving the bond capabilities because they are tied directly to the commissioner's here. If anything, I think we ought to keep it tied through an intergovernmental agreement. That's my thought,
Leave it as is.
that all bonds are paid. But there again, if they get big enough to where they can do their own thing. And I see what Todd's saying too, that we're not gonna let their house get repossessed out there. But
Well, I think
we
along
can't-
those lines, one thing that I noticed is a weakness, and I don't know how you correct it, but when we were at one of the airport meetings, and they went over their finances, you know, they were comparing what they did financially with what they did last year. So, all that tells me is, you know, if I had a mismanaged this much last year, I've only mismanaged 2.3% more. I think they need some time, they're handling a lot of money and a lot of things. I think they need some type of accounting in their organization.
It needs to be like a business.
Exactly, exactly, but the same, you know, they gave us $400,000 last year, and this year we only spent 401, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything.
Well, let me ask
What'd you
this,
do with it?
so let me ask this question. The IGA that was passed by the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, one of the requirements was that on July, or every July, the Airports Authority has to present their budget for the coming year, correct?
Right.
And then part of that was they had to show their expenditures and then for the past year, but they also had to then present their budget for the coming year. So I think at that point,
You've got some accountability.
you do have some
built in.
accountability.
Yeah.
At that point, if you're actually showing, we spent X amount of dollars on runway improvements and X amount of dollars
That's
on
what they
staffing.
say.
Not right now, I don't believe they show that right now. I'm saying that the IGA requires that going forward, that they have to show the previous 12 months expenditures and then how they get to their upcoming budget.
Well, I just don't think that
They're
running a very
separate.
accountable
They can do anything
organization.
they want, they've already given them.
That's what this new board is supposed to accomplish, right?
Right. So maybe instead of a lawyer on it, we needed an accountant.
You want to open that back up?
Mark, I agree with you.
Okay.
Is that tied to the bonds? But Mark and I had talked about this before, that they definitely, all the government departments here should have more accountability as far as their audits and where they're at, what they're doing. And I personally, and I was laughing at the gentleman here that used to work at Lockheed, we did that every month. It was not once a year. But that could be an extreme on going over your budgets and your projects, at minimum of once a quarter. So,
Well, that's more.
because if you wait once a year, you can be so far over your head that you don't even.
Well, but my understanding, and I could be wrong, so, I mean, you know, Commissioner Carmichael and Powell can correct me, but my understanding with the IGA is that, yes, they're gonna get $400,000 for 2015. The following year, they reduce it by 25,000 each year, and then they, working its way down to a 10-year, at that point, they're down to 175, correct? So, if they're overspending in their budget, they're overspending, that's their problem.
I don't think it's a matter of overspending, it's a matter of measured effectiveness.
Yes.
Here, we've given you $400,000, what have you done with it?
Right, but I
Have you
think,
mowed the grass?
but that goes back, but that goes back
As long as you spend
to,
$400,000 on that same
right,
philosophy,
but that goes
it'd be
back
good.
to,
That should have been in the IGA.
right, but at the same time, in the IGA, it actually dictates that every July you have to come back, the Airports Authority would have to come back and actually show what they spent their money on.
Yeah, but that's way too long.
But, I mean,
We're way off bonds.
Yeah, we're way off.
I don't take my thunder.
but I think it just goes back to corporate governance and accountability. You have a board of directors that's supposed to manage the CEO, right? The board's ultimately accountable if they're not
Right, and
running
they're
the
gonna,
organization right.
they'll dictate to Blake what they expect.
So bonds, it sounds like we're just gonna leave the same
So I'll make the motion that we keep the current bond
language.
language as it is currently written in the 1972 law
I would second that.
Motion, motion to approve? Vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, next.
Any indifference? We've already got started on this chart.
What was the other, was there another one or?
There is one more, but it's authority versus county department.
Oh, yeah,
We've already talked about that one. so.
Yeah, we voted on that one.
So, this is really the last one that was voted.
And other really is just some of the concepts we've been talking about, the communication, and Larry put together a really good list of suggestions that he circulated, that, you know, we could probably take that almost verbatim into the report. The one that Cecilia had and other ones, but, I mean, I guess at this point, we're just brainstorming on kind of big overall concepts about better communication, greater transparency. Sounds like Mark's talking about not only more accountability, but more accounting. Financial statements, measured success. I mean, you want to write some of those things down, or just write some of those things down? I mean,
You know, it's what can't get over is that we've got an airport out there, and the county's giving them money, but we don't have a fuel truck. It's not effective. So we're gonna drag your plane out here and fill it up. You know, you fly an airport, how many times you gonna stop at that airport?
And if you're second in line, you're gonna wait till he gets drug off to get.
Yeah, how many times you gonna stop at that airport? I'm just gonna run down here and run into Cedartown, you know.
I mean, right now, the only thing that entices them is that they've got about the cheapest gas, from what I understand, in the Atlanta metro. Outside of that, you're right, they don't have a fuel truck. They don't have multiple fuel trucks. They don't have the capabilities, so.
They got a fire truck, catches on fire, they can put it out.
Anyway, you know, some way to measure some effectiveness, you know.
I mean,
Mark, I agree with you.
well, somebody put that up there.
Thanks. I've got it here.
You got it down, John? Okay.
I put it under.
So in this category of things we're talking about, these are general suggestions that we would make back to the Board of Commissioners of things they should consider. Is that what we're talking about?
Better communication, citizens.
And then to the board,
So they're not specific recommendations, they're general.
these are non-statutory, general observations, suggestions
Got
that,
it.
you know, at the end of the day, we're gonna have a report that
Mhm.
hopefully will get handed to the Board of Commissioners, handed to the new board of this authority, saying this is what these folks looked at, you know, here's the PowerPoint, here were the some suggestions that we came up with, so that, you know, all our work.
I guess I would offer that these suggestions probably don't need a vote. These are things that they should consider, and we don't necessarily have to agree with things that they should consider, right?
Yeah, I think we should vote on the whole list, and that there's
Right,
something really
right.
controversial that would somehow get knocked off, but.
Is there any other major topics up there that we think we ought to address? We got communication, transparency, vision, and accountability. And here's where I was going with it. If we didn't have any more major topics, we could actually pass them out this next week, and people could write what you want to put in there, and we could just consolidate it into and then
And then we'd have an opportunity to edit the report,
edit
and
the
then,
report and stuff, and
I think that's a good idea.
because it's 7:30 and
I'd just like to make a real quick.
Go ahead.
And when you're done, but I would like to read the points that I wrote today so that everybody in the public right now has an understanding of what I've presented, even though it's amongst us.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's good, Larry. I
That's a
like
good
a lot,
idea.
I agree. I like a lot of what you wrote.
So so I had 10 points. The first one was actually a follow-up, which was that the Airports Authority Board should present its annual capital improvement plan to the citizens of the county no less than 30 calendar days prior to official submittal to the FAA. Presentation must be presented may be presented at an official monthly board meeting or on a separate date. All citizen comments shall be collected for a period of 15 calendar days following presentation for immediate or future consideration. A digital copy of the annual FAA capital improvement plan should also be made available for the airport's website. Then we get into the actual list. Airports Authority Board shall conduct monthly meetings no earlier than 5:30 p.m. to allow more citizen involvement. The Airports Authority Board shall purchase an electronic marquee sign placed at the entrance of the airport on the main access road located near Route 278 to inform citizens of upcoming events and meetings. The Airports Authority Board should establish an alert email notification through the Paulding County government website and shall be used when unscheduled or emergency meetings are required prior to the next scheduled monthly meeting. The Airports Authority Board shall not conduct any unscheduled or emergency meetings prior to 5:30 p.m. To allow citizen involvement, the Airports Authority Board shall provide minimum 48 hours notice prior to any unscheduled emergency meetings. The Paulding County Airports Board shall post the meeting agenda for regular scheduled meetings no less than 72 hours prior to the meeting. The board shall post the meeting agenda for any unscheduled emergency meetings at the time of the notification. The board shall post a notice for any future construction projects a minimum of 30 days prior to submitting the plans to the Board of Commissioners for final approval. And the last one is the board shall post a notice for any future project on the Paulding County government websites, the Paulding County Airport website, the local newspaper, and shall broadcast it through the use of electronic mail utilizing the Paulding County email service. So those were my recommendations, and I know that the group wouldn't have seen them if I hadn't read them all, but I just wanted everybody to know that I've made recommendations on how to better communicate more so than anything.
So those are some very direct and specific on better communication with citizens, and I think are all good.
Right. I was writing scope of works today, so it just really
Very
started
well.
on me.
I'll take those when I publish these different topics out, put them in the communications or wherever it falls. And I'll work with you on some of the ideas you and I had on this accountability stuff. We'll just put it together and pass it out, and I'll try to get it out before 2 o'clock in the morning next Sunday.
So are we ready to write a final report?
Yeah, I think the next item on the agenda is next meeting's topic of discussion, which I think what I thought is the mechanism for drafting a report, whether or not maybe John and I get together, or maybe then a couple other folks, via email, kind of get it together, then we start circulating amongst the broader
Just
community.
get the basics presentation.
At least get the bones built out, and then start circulating around the whole committee, and then we start filling it in. So that, I don't even know, we have to have another meeting until this report is done, but we need to set a deadline when we're gonna be done. And then basically, we can have to talk to lawyers whether or not we can just approve it via email, or we actually have to have a meeting to come in and say, this is our final report, and that's it.
Hold on a second.
So, any discussion about
He was
that?
on the phone, never mind. I thought he was talking to us. Hold on just a minute.
So, it's gonna be like a PowerPoint with all those things in here, a table of contents, who all we talked to, bibliography, and it's all gonna be able to be electronic, we burn it to a CD, and that's it. That's what I was thinking.
Would there be any value added to a dry run? What we got together for a dry run before we,
Yeah, because we gotta come up with a report, and then we're supposed to present it, right?
Hand them the CD.
CD and we'll see.
The report speaks for itself.
Have a good life.
How long do you need to get the report out, do you think?
We've got a deadline right now, the 28th, I think, of October. Is when we're supposed, it's the last commissioner meeting in the month of October. That's
Probably
when
ought
we're
to do
supposed to present it.
one first draft, and then a week or so later, second, and final, so we got at least some different milestones in between. We've got their calendar up.
I've got one. We've got a regularly scheduled meeting on the 25th. I guess I'd recommend that we cancel that in favor of a meeting on the 9th where we go over the final report to be presented, if we all agree, at that meeting, to be presented at the next Board Commissioner meeting.
Which would be the 21st.
I don't have that date. Is that the 21st?
I believe so, it's on Tuesdays.
Yes. That's correct.
When does the commissioners meet? I may be the 21st. The 2nd and the 4th, all right, it's gonna be the 28th and not the 21st.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah, so they'll meet on the 7th and the 14th.
Yep. We just missed it too.
13th or the 14th or the 28th.
Well, that would give us a couple of weeks to do